Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars action figure review. Today we're doing more of an overview than a review, I suppose, as we're going to be taking a look at 6 figures in one video. These ones come to us from the brand new Phantom Menace Retro Collection box set, and this is a video that's been quite a few years in the making, to be honest, because not only have I never given you guys a look at anything from the Retro Collection, but it's also been about 3 years since I last gave you a look at anything 3 3/4 inch related. So we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone in this review, or 6 if you count the figures that we're getting in this box. This is something that I didn't have plans to pick up when it was first announced, but after watching Steve Evans's video on this box set and after finally seeing it in person recently in my local Forbidden Planet, something drew me to it, and I'm so grateful that my wife picked this one up for my birthday recently because it's absolutely amazing. The only issue that I'm having with this set is whether or not to open the figures up, and that's what I mean when I say that we're going to be doing more of an overview in this video rather than an actual review, because I haven't actually opened these figures up yet. I'm a little bit indecisive as to what to do about whether or not to keep them carded or whether to open them up and add them to my already existing Retro Collection display. Now, one of the things that I really want to talk about in this video is the box set format itself, because for the most part the Retro Collection has been released over the last few years as separate waves, and it's allowed collectors such as myself to really cherry pick the line and just pick up figures that I really want to get rather than having to pick up an entire wave. So over the course of the last few waves, figures from the Book of Boba Fett, for example, Ahsoka, even some of the original trilogy waves, I've not picked up every single figure. I've just grabbed one here and there, and that's something that you're not really able to do anymore with this new box set format. Thankfully, all the figures in this set are equally as good as one another, and we'll touch base on those very, very shortly. But for example, with the upcoming box set that's coming out from episodes 2 and 3, if there are figures in that set that you only want to add to your collection, for example, myself, I only want to get Jango Fett and the Clone Trooper, but if I want those, I've got to buy the entire box. And I'm not a massive fan of that. I understand why they're doing it because, you know, I'm not oblivious. I know that the Retro Collection has its detractors, and I know that for the most part, at least here in the UK, it's not been a particularly big seller. But I think the box set format really limits the idea of being able to cherry pick the line and just pick up the figures that you really want to get. Again, it makes sense on both sides, but for me it's just slightly annoying. But like I said, with this Phantom Menace box set, I love every single figure in it and I'm really glad to have picked it up, so no issues on that front with this one. Now, as you can see, diving into the product itself, we do get 6 individually carded figures in this set, and this is why I'm so indecisive, because each and every card in this box set is really, really nice and the figures look great on them. But we do have Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, Queen Amidala, which I think if this was a wave that was released individually, that's definitely the first figure I'd have picked up because it's really, really good. We have Darth Maul, of course, Jar Binks, another amazing addition to the line, and we also have the Battle Droid as well. So there's not really a weak figure in this set, if any. It's probably the Battle Droid, and we'll touch base on why that is shortly. But for the most part, this is a really, really cool assortment of figures. On the top of the box, as you can see there, we do have images of the characters from the movie that are included in the set itself, and then the rest of the box just has the Phantom Menace logo, the Retro Collection logo, all that sort of stuff plastered all over it. So, you know, nicely presented, but I think the box set format definitely has its pros and cons. But what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. But we're going to dive into this video now, and we're going to take a look at each of the figures included in the set. So let's kick things off by taking a look at the first 3. Now, usually I'd save the best for last with videos like this, but I don't want to keep you guys waiting. I want to give you a look at my 3 favourite figures from this set, and boy oh boy are these figures good. First off, we have Queen Amidala, which in a weird, ironic sort of way is the very first time that we've seen this version of Queen Amidala on a vintage style card. Now, as I said earlier, I know that the retro collection has its detractors. I know that there are people out there that absolutely hate this line, and I know that there are people out there who absolutely love it. And then there's a pocket of fans in the middle that love the concept but don't particularly like the execution, and that definitely relates to the card backs themselves. The retro collection sticker itself is very controversial, as is the wear and tear around the edges of the card, but there's no denying that it is so cool to finally see this particular version of Queen Amidala on this style packaging, and I think it's only a matter of time before we get this figure in the actual vintage collection, now that Hasbro have got the card back ready to go. The figure itself, though, is, I would argue, probably the best from this new retro collection wave. I absolutely love this figure. The colours are vibrant and strong and bold, and the sculpt is absolutely incredible. I think on this one, it's definitely one of those where the overall style of the figure definitely reflects the retro Kenner style of the 70s and 80s, but the details are really, really well done on this one. It's very obviously simplified in terms of its overall design, but the ornate details on this one really, really stand out, and it just looks absolutely phenomenal. I think, again, like I said, I'm indecisive about opening these figures up, but one of the things that's really drawing me to keep this figure in particular carded is how the red on the dress and the gold details really stand out against that blue blister, and they look really, really nice. I absolutely love this figure. I love how it's presented on the card. It's just really, really good, and like I said, my main sort of inspiration, I'd say, for picking up this box set, because it is without a doubt just a remarkable figure. As you can see on the card itself, you've got the Phantom Menace logo, the Queen Amidala name pill, really cool still image from the movie as well of the character, and of course that big bulbous retro collection sticker, which I'm probably in the minority, but I don't actually mind it. I think it diversifies the line. It makes you aware. I mean, the figure itself is obvious that it's not a vintage collection figure, but it makes you aware that this is not from the vintage collection. And there's so many fans that get confused between the Black Series 6-inch line and 3 3/4 inch line that I think that's necessary in some cases. It's probably the same reason that they write "don't drink" on the back of bleach bottles. It's so that you know not to pick this figure up if you're a vintage collection collector. But like I said, the figure itself, absolutely incredible. I'm really, really torn as to whether or not I want to rip this one open and get it out on display with my other retro collection figures. You can't actually see them in the background of my video, but they're up here in one of my Billy bookcases. I'll give you a look at those in a future collection tour video. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal release. Definitely my favourite figure from the set overall, and yeah, really, really happy to have this one in the collection. On the back of the card, nothing amazing. That's probably one of my only issues with the retro collection cards, is the fact that there's nothing particularly visually appealing on the back. One thing I do have to point out about this particular wave, though, is that Hasbro have finally improved the card stock, so the cards are a lot thicker than previous retro collection waves have been, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. And each figure in the set is also unpunched, which I'm sure, if you are a carded collector, is really going to tickle your pickle. So definitely a lot of good things going on in this particular set. So that's Queen Amidala. Moving on to our next figure. He's a bit of a controversial choice, and I'm sure some people love him, some people hate him, but it is Jar Binks, and I absolutely love the transition into the retro style for this character. He's still reasonably detailed. You've still got all those different colours going on in the skin, and the sculpt itself is really, really nice as well. But this is definitely, I think, a character that lends itself to the retro style. I just think aliens in the original Kenner sculpted style look absolutely amazing, and this one is no exception. He does come with the Battle Droid blaster, as you can see, and unlike Queen Amidala that I just gave you a look at, this figure does come on a card that we've already seen in the vintage collection. So it's nice to see that brought to life once again for this particular assortment. Like I said, though, really, really cool figure in and of itself, and it's another one that I'm really having a hard time deciding whether I want to open up or not. I may get to a point where I open some of these and leave some of them carded. Maybe my favourite ones will stay carded. But yeah, this one just looks really, really good. Again, the colours really pop on this card. Really nice indeed. One of my only issues with this one, and again it's making me lean towards the decision to open these figures and not leave them carded, is the fact that when I open this one out of the box, and when I say box I mean the box set, is that on the back you've got that wear and tear around the edge of the card, which is manufactured. But look at this, I've got organic wear and tear. The card is ripped and I don't understand why. It's just got, it's like the sticker's been peeled off. I don't understand what's going on there. So I was a little bit disappointed to learn that when I opened this one up, that the card was already damaged. But it's on the back, at least it's not on the front. But obviously if you're a carded collector, you go big or you go home, and you go for the mint on card approach. But yeah, that was just a little bit disappointing to learn upon opening this figure out of the box itself. But like I said, it's on the back, you can't really see it, and the card itself, again, looks really nice. So one for the carded collection. Perhaps we'll hopefully, like I said, make a decision by the end of this video. But yeah, Jar Binks, very cool figure. I think the love is coming back for Jar Jar now. You know, all that hate has sort of died down 25 years later. But yeah, really happy to have this one in the retro collection. I think it makes that transition into the style really well. And speaking of which, another figure that looks amazing in the Kenner style is of course Darth Maul. And I've got to echo the sentiments of Steve Evans here when I say that this is the figure that when the retro collection style, or the retro collection assortment itself, was first revealed, I think this figure was on a lot of hit lists in terms of getting it out into that original retro Kenner style, and it works so well. I absolutely love this figure. Again, it's going to be one of those where I think a lot of collectors will probably pick it apart for its lack of paint applications, but think back to the 70s and 80s, man. You know, a lot of these figures weren't anywhere near as detailed as they are today, and that's reflected in this figure, and it's done in a tasteful way. It doesn't look cheap, but it's done in a way that is reflective of the era. So as you can see on the head, a lot of Darth Maul's tattoos are actually missing, and in any other instance, if this was a vintage collection figure, I would be kicking off. But in this instance, it really works. I think that looks really nice. You've still got the horned head going on, you've still got the red and black face paint, but like I said, some of those finer details are absent. But again, it really works. I also really love the differences in the black on the clothing. So you've got gloss on the gloves, belt and boots, and then the rest of the figure has this really nice matte finish to it. The sculpt is incredible. It's not overly detailed, again, to be reflective of figures of this era, but it does look really nice. And the lightsaber as well is very similar in style as well. Very simplistic. It's obviously an extended version of the lightsabers that we would have seen in the original vintage Kenner line. But yeah, it again makes that transition into the line really well, and is another figure that looks absolutely phenomenal. Again, on that card as well, against that blue background, looks superb. It's another card that we've seen already in the vintage collection. Would have been nice to have seen a different image used for this one, but be that as it may, it is what it is. Really cool figure though. I know that Daniel East 1000 is probably going to go mental for this one because he's a bit of a Darth Maul aficionado, a bit of a focus collector. So I think this is definitely a figure that he's going to want to get into the collection somehow or some way. But again, you've got the retro collection sticker there, Phantom Menace logo up top. Really cool stuff going on with this one. I love Darth Maul. I think he looks absolutely amazing. So moving on throughout the assortment, we have the next three figures in the box set. And I know I said that I gave you a look at the best three first, but that is by no means indicative of the fact that these figures aren't very good, because they are. And again, carded, they look amazing, and I'm really tempted to open these up as well and get them on display because they do look really nice. But I just can't decide what to do, so I'm relying on your guys' help throughout this video to make a decision. But there we go. First up we have Qui-Gon Jinn, another really cool figure. Another card we've seen in the vintage collection already, but still very nice to see once again. Retro collection sticker, of course. The figure itself features a soft goods robe, which is really nice to see, although I'm a little bit puzzled as to why they decided to give one to Qui-Gon and not to Obi-Wan. But again, be that as it may, it is what it is. The figure itself, really, really nice. I think the head sculpt, despite being sort of that retro Kenner style, definitely captures the likeness of Liam Neeson. He's got that mullet going on, of course, which looks really cool. He's got his green lightsaber. Unfortunately, on the card, you can't really see a lot of the detail underneath the robe, but still a really cool looking figure. Definitely one that I'm excited to get out if I do decide to open these ones. I think it's a given that if these figures do come out of their packaging, I'm going to have to display Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul facing off against one another. But again, really nice figure carded. Looks really, really cool. Moving on, we have Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is probably another favourite from the line. I think this guy looks really, really cool. Again, carded. I love the look of this figure. What really stands out to me about vintage collection and retro collection cards, and one of the things that I really like about it, you know, on the live streams that I do with Daniel East 1000 and James RoboQuiff Collects, one of the things that we like to do is give vintage collection a hard time, and it's all in jest, it's all in good fun, but you know, I've said for a while I do miss the times when we used to get unique packaging for different movies and different shows and what have you. So I'm not saying I'm bored of the vintage collection, because that's like blasphemy, but it would be nice to see different packaging variations sprinkled in throughout the 3 3/4 inch line. But one of the things that I really do like about vintage cards is when the colours just burst off of one another and contrast really well, and this is a fine example of that. You've got this really vibrant colour going on the background image, but then you've got the blister bubble background there, which is a strong vibrant colour as well. The figure bounces off of that. You've got the logo up at the top, and all these colours just explode and make for a really, really nice carded example of what is a really, really cool figure. So when vintage and retro do it right, they really do it right. And one of the things that's really stood out to me recently, one of the figures, should I say, that's really stood out to me recently with regards to that is Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels, which I was lucky enough to get a first look at in person at MCM Comic Con a couple of weeks ago. That card back, that figure, everything is so nicely put together. And again, it's another fine example of when those colours just explode and really, you know, hit you with the vibrancy, which I really do like. Back to the figure there, again, really nicely sculpted, very indicative of the retro sort of theme. You've got the blue lightsaber, of course. The braid is actually sculpted on part of the head and on part of the shoulder as well, so it's not a separate piece, which again I think is accurate to how this figure would have been made had it been released back in the 70s and 80s. But yeah, just a really, really cool figure, and again that card back image looks great as well. So that's Obi-Wan. And finally we have the Battle Droid. Now, like I said, this is probably the weakest figure of the wave for me, and that's not because I'm not a fan of Battle Droids, I really am. But this is probably, in my opinion, the most modern looking figure from this assortment. Now, it's done obviously in the retro Kenner style, 5 POA, simplistic details, all that sort of stuff, but it's hard to imagine this figure being available during the original trilogy run. So the Kenner interpretation of it doesn't really transition that well. This would not look out of place alongside your sort of modern vintage collection 3 3/4 inch figures. So it's weak, but not for the reasons that you'd think, at least not in my opinion anyway. It's posed in a sort of mid-action pose. You've got a bent elbow, ready to hold the blaster, which he does come with, as you can see. But yeah, just more modern than some of the other figures, which is a detriment to this one when it's part of the retro collection, but still very, very nice to see nonetheless. Big fan of this one. Definitely, if I'm going to open any of the figures up, this is probably going to be the one, just to bulk up those Battle Droid ranks. But like I said, overall, don't have a bad thing to say about this set. So there we go, that is going to conclude this. I was going to keep it brief, but we've run to nearly 20 minutes. Look at the Phantom Menace Retro Collection box set. Like I said, really keen to get your guys' thoughts on this one. Are you a fan of the Retro Collection as a whole? What do you think to the box set format? And most importantly, what should I do with these figures? Should I open them up? Should I keep them carded? Help me, guys, you're my only hope. I really hope that you've enjoyed taking a look at these figures with me. Like I said, this is something a little bit different. I didn't want to script this one too much, write down any notes or anything. I wanted to keep it, you know, off the cuff, a little bit more laid back. It's just a thoughts and feels about this set more than anything else. But like I said, I really hope you've enjoyed taking a look at it with me. I'll be back with some more reviews very, very soon. I've got some really cool Black Series figures to give you a look at in some of my upcoming videos, so make sure you stay tuned for those. And until next time, as always, thank you for watching, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.